Grammar quiz number 6 is going to ask you guys to look at some in-text citations and evaluate whether they're formatted correctly or incorrectly based on the information provided in source links that I'll give you. So I wanted to go over some examples of different types of citations and the way you can use signal phrases differently and how that's going to affect what you actually put in the in-text citation. So this is going to be preparing you for the quiz, but you can also use this as a resource when you are writing your own in-text citations for paraphrases and quotations in your paper. So if we're just looking at our basic format for an in-text citation, as we've talked about before, it's that last name, year, and page number if you have it. Of course, if you don't have the page number, we just omit that piece of information. If we don't have a year, that's when we put that N period, D period in lowercase letters to signify there is no date. So if we look at number 1 there, we've got a basic signal phrase, an article explained. Then we get our quotation, and then at the end we have our author's last name, comma, the year. Noticing the period comes after the in-text citation, not before. If the author's named in the signal phrase, so we wanted to put Strum as our last name in the signal phrase, then we want to make sure we're putting that date in parentheses right after his name. And then in this case, the period does go inside those quotation marks because all that in-text citation information is at the beginning of the sentence. If we have what's called an indirect citation, where we've got maybe a person being interviewed, or they're referring to results from another study, or they're kind of giving a statistic or fact from another organization or another article or book, we're going to cite it as an indirect source. So in this case, we've got someone named Teresa Lynch, who was an author that was being referenced by Strum. So we include her in the signal phrase. So Teresa Lynch said, again, it could be something like the World Health Organization reported. And then in our in-text citation, we just need to add the phrase as cited in before we put the author of the actual article and the year of that article. We use that phrase as cited in when we're doing an indirect source. If we've got a paraphrase or a summary, right, in-text citation rules are the same. We don't need to put those quotation marks around anything because we're not borrowing any words directly, we're putting it into our own words. So we just kind of put that at the end and the period follows that in-text citation. If we do have a page number then, the only difference is that we're going to put the P period 3 period at the end of the quotation if we've got the author and year in the signal phrase. If we wanted to put all that information in the in-text citation, then we just add another comma, put a lowercase p in our period, and the page number we found the information on. In the APA, if we have 2 authors in a signal phrase, we'll just list their last names, put the year, and then continue on to our quotation. And in this case, if we had a quote from the page, we would put that in the end. Also, you can see here that I've used a little bracket. You can use this piece of punctuation if you've added something to a quotation. So maybe you need to change the tense of a word or make something plural for it to fit with the sentence you have. Or maybe you even need to add a whole word or two to add some clarity to the quotation because, some piece of information that was mentioned earlier in the paragraph is missing from that quote. So if you ever need to add something to a quotation, that's when we put those square brackets around. Anything we add tells the readers that was not in the original source. Then if we've got our 2 authors in the in-text citation and not the signal phrase, we just change that and to an and symbol, the ampersand. And same kind of procedure for the rest of it. Then if we've got 3 or more authors, we can use a shortcut. This is very similar to MLA, but if we've got 3 or more authors, we just pick only the first author's last name, followed by the phrase et al., which is Latin for and others. So if Williams was our first author out of 3, 5, 7, 18 authors, we would do Williams et al. 2009 reported and our quote. Or again, if we have it at the end of this sentence, Williams et al. Period, comma, 2009. If we have no author, we're going to use a shortened form of the title. If the title is pretty short, though, we can use the whole thing. So again, if we've got it at the end of a sentence, we can put our parentheses, quotation marks around the title. In this case, we do capitalize the main words of the title, which is different from what we do in the references page, where we don't capitalize all the words of the title, and then our year. And again, if we've got the title and signal phrase, we will capitalize the whole thing, put the whole title there, and then I will have my year. And again, in the signal phrase, even if it's a long title, you do want to list the whole thing out so that a reader can find it more easily in your references entry. And then last but not least, if you've got a corporate author, something like a company or an organization or a U.S. department or a university or a government department of another country, you can cite that person as an author. You wouldn't do this though for like a newspaper or magazine or like a web page publication necessarily. So you'd never have like CNN or the New York Times would really not be in your signal phrase. They would not be in your in-text citation. It's really only going to be for companies, organizations, government departments, or schools, or organizations. So in that case, we treat them very similar to an author's last name, according to Nielsen 2015, comma, and then we go ahead there. And if we were to have that as an in-text citation, we would have Nielsen, comma, 2015, all in parentheses with the period at the very end there.